Hello everybody and welcome back to Wildcat MTG. Happy pre-release Friday. So it's pre-release Friday, it's Dominaria United. We finally get to play with this set. I know I am personally excited to have a chance to go out to my local LGS this weekend and draft and play with this set. And I think there's some pretty fun cards in this set. I have put together a top 10 card list of cards that are the cards that I'm most excited about in this set. And so kind of talking about that criteria a little bit before we actually jump into what that top 10 list looks like. You'll notice that I avoid use of the word things like most powerful or best cards. And the reason for that is I've picked the cards that I personally am most excited to play with. I think when you talk about best or most powerful, it is very subjective in terms of what format that power level belongs to, because where that card slots in may be different and where it is most effective may be different and really format dependent. So I personally have selected cards that I just think are cool or interesting or weird. Cards that really highlight the diversity of this particular set and what it brings to the table. So that's kind of what I go by. Again, I look for representation of the set, mechanics, new mechanics, old mechanics, things that are weird, things that I think are very, I guess you could say kind of like Timmy-like. But that's kind of what I look for. And so, with those things in mind, why don't we go ahead and jump right in, and I'll start with my number 10. Okay, so I went through this whole diatribe about how I wasn't going to put the most necessarily powerful or the best cards on this list, and lo and behold, here we are at number 10, and I've got Liliana of the Veil on there. But hear me out on this. It would be a crime to say that I'm not excited about this card, because as somebody who owns 0 copies of this card right now, please believe I am very excited about opening some packs and possibly ripping a Liliana of the Veil. Obviously a big modern card, a 3-drop Planeswalker that brings a ton to the table. I'll be very interested to see how this card slots into the meta of a standard or pioneer environment. So Liliana of the Veil, it's a card where I have it at number 10. Yes, I am very excited. But the reason I don't have it on the list, higher on the list, is because it just felt a little too easy, right? Feels a little bit too easy. There's not a whole lot of suspense there if you don't see Liliana at 1 through 9, or excuse me, at 10 through 2, because then you kind of know what's coming at 1, right? So Liliana of the Veil, I have her at number 10. I'm excited about opening it. I'll be very intrigued to see where this card slots into a meta in Standard and Pioneer. But there we are, Liliana of the Veil at number 10. So at number 9, I have Defiler of Vigor, and this is part of a cycle. So each color got a different Defiler, but this particular Defiler is the one I keyed on as the one I was most excited about. And a rich tradition of green creatures that are efficiently costed. It is a 5 for a 6/6. In addition to that, it also has trample. So right off the bat, I like it as a creature that is, again, fairly efficiently costed, but also has trample. So it has the ability to push through for some damage on its big 6/6 frame. But there's more to it than that as well. So it also says, as an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 1 green less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay. So it almost comes with an ability where it's kind of turning your green permanent spells into Phyrexian spells by being able to use your life total as a way to help cheat them into play or ramp them into play, if you will. But the card's not done yet. There's still more to it. And it says whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So couple things here. It says each creature you control. It doesn't say each other creature you control. And it also doesn't say each green creature you control. So A, it impacts itself by putting a counter on itself. And again, it was already a 6/6 trampler. And B, it does not care if your other creatures on the field are different colors as well. As long as you're playing green permanent spells, it's pumping your entire team. That to me is doing a lot of work. I like cards that have a passive ability to it. If I was already going to cast a green permanent spell anyway, great. And now I'm getting even more value at it. This card, if it sits on the battlefield, to me is just a card that has to be dealt with. Otherwise, it gets out of control real quick. And again, just a big body creature. I love big beefy green creatures. So number 9, Defiler of Vigor. So at number 8, I get to highlight one of the things I like about Dominaria, and that is the tribal element. So a lot of this is kind of part of another cycle where different colors are getting different lords. So, Merfolk is getting, blue is getting Merfolk, white is getting soldiers, green is getting elves, and of course that means that red is getting goblins. So we have Runvelt Hordemaster at number 8, and it is 2 for a 1/1. Just like other lords, it gives your other goblins +1/+1. But what I find to be interesting about this card is the other text where it says Runvelt Hordemaster, or whenever Runvelt Hordemaster or another goblin you control dies, exile the top card of your library. And if it's a goblin creature card, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. I'm not sure if this is going to see play in Modern Goblins deck, but a deck that already is running like a conspicuous snoop where you're getting to play off the top of your library and basically mimic whatever card or mirror whatever card is on top, being able to use Runvelt Hordemaster and its different sack outlets to be able to essentially manipulate your library and look for the combo piece you need while you have a conspicuous snoop in play already seems very, very powerful. And even if you were just in a firefight and you needed to just pump some goblins, just for a 2-drop, being able to pump all your other goblins in and of itself is actually a pretty well-costed, pretty efficient card. So at number 8, I do have Runvelt Hordemaster, and I'm interested to see if that slots in any good old Gobbo decks. Okay, so at number 7, I have Hottie Gin. And other than not having flash, this seems about like the most blue creature ever. So it is a 3-drop, 2 blue, 1 colorless for a flying X4. And it reads, the Hottie Gin's power is equal to number of instant or sorcery cards in your graveyards. And in addition to that, instant or sorcery cards, spells you cast cost 1 colorless mana less to cast. So let's talk about the efficiency of this card. So it is a 3-drop flyer, so it's got evasion. It's got 4 defense, which is going to make it a lot tougher to kill. And right when it comes into play, it's instantly giving you value because it's allowing you to protect it a little bit cheaper by, instead of negating something costing 2 mana, it's costing 1 mana. And on top of that, anytime you're defending yourself with spells, whether it's Spell Pierce or Negate or whatever the case may be, whatever instant or sorceries that you're casting, whether you're getting the discount on it or not, are only feeding into its power. This really feels like it has the potential to be one of those blue tempo cards where it's like, cool, once you get it onto the battlefield, good luck getting rid of it, and now I'm going to swing over the top and kill you with it. I do think this is a really powerful card. I'm not sure how much Standard versus Pioneer or anything play it's going to see, but it really resonated with me as being a very just... a very blue card, and with that being said, I'll be interested to see if it sees some play. Okay, so at number 6, we're kind of back at it with the flyers here. This time it's Sarah Paragon. Sarah Paragon is a 4 for a 3/4 flyer, and it is an angel, so, hello Angel Tribe. But it says, once during each of your turns, you may play a land from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with the mana value of 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it gains, when this permanent is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, exile it and gain 2 life. So, as a 3/4 body that is flying for 4, it's fairly efficient, right? It's not, it's not the most efficient creature, but it's really the text there that makes this card a possible powerhouse and what really intrigued me about it. So, instantly you can either play a land from your graveyard if you haven't played a land this turn and there is a land in your graveyard, or if you still have mana left over, during each of your turns, you can play a 3 CMC spell or less from your graveyard. So it's not quite like Lurrus good, where Lurrus just allowed you to play a 2 permanent, without paying its cost once per turn, but nevertheless, like the ability to actually just pull cards out of your graveyard and get a second value out of them. And on top of that, if that card would be put into your graveyard from the battlefield again, you're getting a life off of it. Very, very powerful tool, especially in an Angel Tribal where it typically cares about life gain. Interested to see if this card has some legs to it, or in this case, I guess some wings to it, and really takes off. But number 6, Sarah Paragon. Okay, so at number 5, I have Urza Assembles the Titans. And in Dominaria United, we get Sagas back, except for Sagas are back with a twist. They have a new mechanic on them now called Read Ahead. And Read Ahead says, choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add 1 after your draw step. Skipped chapters don't trigger. Sacrifice it after the third chapter. So basically, when you play a Saga that has Read Ahead on it now, you get to pick which ability it starts with. And so Urza Assembles the Titans. So the first chapter says scry 4, then you may reveal the top card of your library. If a Planeswalker card is revealed this way, you can put it in your hand. The second chapter is you may put a Planeswalker card with mana value 6 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. And then the third chapter says you may activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers you control twice this turn rather than only once. Things I like about Magic cards is I like things that you don't see coming. I like sneaky abilities. And with these now sagas having the ability to start on any chapter with the read ahead mechanic, it really adds an extra dimension to all those sagas because they're so much more versatile now that you can start them in different places. And with Urza Assembles the Titans, you can search it and you can use it to scry 4, reveal a Planeswalker. Cool, you get a little bit of value there. Chapter 2 is certainly very powerful in that you can take a Planeswalker with mana value 6 or less and put it directly from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's kind of paying for itself, right? Because right away you could take a 6-drop Planeswalker and just throw it on the battlefield. But the third chapter is something I'm very interested about in being able to incorporate into gameplay. So often we don't really see a lot of Planeswalkers hit their ultimate ability because, well, if you're the opponent, and you see a Planeswalker on the ability or a Planeswalker on the battlefield, you want to be able to deal with that Planeswalker before you get to that ultimate ability. One of the things with Urza Assembles the Titans that I really like is that you can kind of use it to sneakily get that extra loyalty on there, which is going to be the thing that sets off your ultimate ability. If you take the new Ajani, for example, Ajani comes new, and if you play the full casting cost on the new Ajani, the sleeper agent, he comes into play with 4 loyalty. You immediately set him off that turn. He goes to 5 loyalty. Your opponent's not thinking that he's going to get to ultimate that next turn, but with this particular card, you play the 4-drop Ajani. Next turn, you play the 5-drop Urza's Assemble, and you read all the way ahead to the last chapter. You use it to use as a +1 ability. Now it goes up to 6 loyalty, and then because you can use a second loyalty ability that turn, you get to ultimate Ajani on the second turn that he was in play, which seems really cool. There's also some other Planeswalkers I think this works with. Again, I don't know how powerful this card is, but as a card that I think would be very cool to play with in casual, and again, catch some people off guard with some Planeswalker ultimates, that I am excited about playing with. And at number 4, I have Joyra the Ageless Innovator. This is a 1 blue, 1 red casting cost for a 2/3. Tap it to put 2 Ingenuity counters on the Ageless Innovator. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of Ingenuity counters on Joyra. So, very interesting, very unique card, right? And that's very much Joyra style, as that card was a very cool commander card that you can use to suspend and put time counters on and kind of cheat things onto the battlefield. And now we're back to cheating artifacts onto the battlefield. And right away, I look at this and you put 2 Ingenuity counters. So the first turn that you're able to tap it, you put 2 Ingenuity counters on it, which means that you can put any artifact from your hand that has a mana value of 2 or less, because 2 Ingenuity counters. And then at 4, you can put 4, right? What an interesting way to cheat artifacts on the battlefield. And I do like that it says X or less. So it's not, if it has 2 Ingenuity counters, that it has to be exactly 2 mana value. It's or less. So once you get up to 4 or 6, what an interesting way to cheat artifacts onto the battlefield. I'm not sure how much synergy there's going to be immediately in Dominaria United with this card, but as we look ahead to a set like Brothers War, which we anticipate to have a high volume of artifacts, watch out for what this card might be able to do in the future. Okay, so at number 3, I have the Souven Duplimanzi, and I really tried to resist the urge to have this card on my list at all because it seemed a little bit too easy, but I gotta admit, I'm actually pretty excited about trying this card out and seeing what kind of wacky shenanigans we can do with it. So it is a 4-drop, 1 blue, 3 colorless blue enchantment, and it says whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature except it's non-legendary. So immediately, things that come to mind are creatures that have ETBs, creating copies of them, which will then ETB, and so, or another, if you're playing like a haste deck, some sort of aggro haste deck, where you use buff spells to buff your haste creatures, and then you create thus other haste creatures. Again, capitalizing on any creature that has enters the battlefield on it, where you're targeting it with a spell. I mean, look out for blink decks, right? If you have the Souven Duplimanzi in play, you have a creature that has a cool ETB on it, a cool enter the battlefield trigger, and then you blink it into play. So now you're bringing that creature, and now you're bringing a buddy for that creature as well, a mirrored buddy. And I haven't even hit on the artifacts. I mean, just some of the things you might be able to do with copying artifacts. Very, very interesting card. I'll be interested to see if it sees any level of play. It is a 4-drop, so it's not like the most, cost-efficient card, but you know what? Definitely some ability to have some real wacky shenanigans. So we'll see what happens with it. So I have mentioned in the past that I like cards that have a passive ability, and what I mean by that is cards that just work without you having to dump extra mana into them. They just do their thing continuously without necessarily even having to be activated. And so at number 2, I have a card that I think fits that mold very, very well. I have Karins Cylix. It's a 3-drop legendary artifact, and it does come into play tapped, but that's okay because it doesn't need to be untapped for it to be doing something. Because it also says players can't pay life to cast spells or to activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So right away, this is turning off fetch lands. Yes, your fetch lands too, but it's also turning off things that require paying life. So basically no Phyrexian mana. And then there is another ability where you can you can pay X and tap it, and you can exile Karins Cylix, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less, activate only as a sorcery. So it's kind of like a Nevinyrral's Disc, right? A Larry Niven's Disc, where you can kind of see it coming because it's going to enter the battlefield tapped. But again, it doesn't even need to be untapped for it to be doing something. And the other thing about it is, listen, I don't know how much Phyrexian mana, how cautious Wizards is going to be, but we already know that we're getting 2 sets next year that will at least be flirting with Phyrexian mana, or should be, because it's, March of the Machines and the aftermath of March of the Machines. It stands to reason that there might be Phyrexian mana involved in that. But the other card this card pairs very well with is Karn the Great Creator, because Karn the Great Creator does not care if your artifact is exiled or not, because it can actually pull it out of exile to put it back in your hand, which means you get some replay value with Karn Cylix. I do think this is modern playable. I think this is going to pair well with Karn the Great Creator. Its card, I think, is actually just pretty darn good. And finally, coming in at number 10, I have Shieldred the Apocalypse. Yes, I am going to bookend this thing by having a super powerful black card at number 10 and a super powerful black card at number 1, but I couldn't help myself. From the moment I saw this card when it was spoiled, I was like, well, this card I'm pretty sure is amazing. It is a 4-drop 4/4/5, so a very well costed, mana efficient creature. It's got Death Touch, so nobody wants to get in its way when it's attacking or blocking. And then on top of that, it says whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So again, I like passive cards. Well, I like gaining life just because I was drawing a card, because I was going to do that anyway. And I like my opponent losing life when they draw a card because, well, good for me. This to me has one of the makings of those cards where I feel like if you can untap with this card, there's some really wild stuff you can do with it, and a very good chance to win the game. I think it's very commander playable in that it says whenever an opponent, it might put a giant bullseye on your back, but it's commander playable. Just a very interesting card. Forced card draw as a way to beat your opponent with this card seems really interesting as a win condition. I can't wait to play this card into some decks and actually see how this thing rolls in practicality. So yeah, number 1, Shieldred the Apocalypse. So that is my top 10 cards from Dominaria United that I am most excited about playing with. And as I head into pre-release tonight and throughout the weekend, I hope to rip at least a couple of these cards, get a chance to play with them a little bit more. But now I'd love to hear from you. What are the cards that you're most excited about from this set? Is it the reprint of the Pain Lands? Are there other cards that I didn't mention that are on your list? Let me know in the comments. And do me a favor, if you like the video, if you like the content, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for me, hit the like button for me, and of course, by all means, drop me some comments as well. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks so much, and happy pre-release weekend, everyone.